Good afternoon. Welcome to the Richie Winn Show. He has degrees in geology and philosophy, so he's a scientist and a thinker. He studied other sciences like economics, physics, climatology, but his real love is politics, breaking down liberal arguments into their logical components and exposing their flaws. Here's the host of The Logical Choice. Here's Richie!
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Richie Winn Show. I'm your host, Richie Winn, here on this wonderful Saturday afternoon after another entertaining week in politics. So much fun stuff to talk about. If you'd like to call in and be part of the program, our call-in number is 888-923-1380. That's 888-923-1380. We also have our text line set up at 916-234-6263. That's 916-234-6263. Feel free to just send a message on over if you don't have time to call in or just don't want to go on the air. So, oh boy, this week, it's so entertaining. If any of you watched the Democrat debate, again, my condolences. I was thinking about this on the way over here, and I think the best way to really describe how the Democrat debates go, how you can, if you just turn on a random debate and you don't know if it's the Republican debate or the Democrat one, if the lowlights are the same as the highlights, it's the Democrat one. I went through and tried to get a few clips myself. I have a few clips to play for you. And I was really debating, are these the highlights? Are these the lowlights? It's entertaining, but some of it's also some of the scariest stuff that they have. I also wanted to get back to, there was a story that I was talking about last week with Roger Stone. That's still going on. Looks like he got sentenced 3 years. And he's already started the process of trying to get a new trial. I don't know why the judge didn't immediately do this. One of the things that happened was the person who was the head of the jury was they even ran as a Democrat. They're this Trump-hating, foaming at the mouth individual, and this was not just a member of the jury, but the jury foreman or foreperson, the one that they elected to kind of be their leader person. And the person just had it in the bag against Roger Stone from the get-go. So many people out there that hate Trump so much, if they can't get him, they're going to get everybody near him that they can. It's a mafia mentality, and it's terrible and it's destructive. And this person was on the jury. How on earth did that happen? It's the judge's job at the very beginning of the trial to go through and make sure that there's no one there that comes in with a bias. In any court case, I got thrown out of a jury once because before it started, I did not thrown out. It was a preemptive exemption from one of the attorneys. And that was just because I was asking, and these were legitimate questions. I had questions about the case. I said, this doesn't seem right the way that this is set up. I asked a couple of questions, and then the defense was like, all right, you're excused. We do not want you on the jury. And it's the judge's job to do that with people who are just can't be unbiased in the first place, or maybe they don't speak the language well or whatever. Either way, it's ridiculous that this woman was even made it on the jury, and that's going to be the foundation of him trying to get a new trial, because this was absurd. The other thing that I was talking about was how that news story was reported as four members of the prosecution resigned over the interference from the Attorney General, from the Justice Department. And there's so much other information that was left out. And I started reading my list, and there was so much going on, I didn't get a chance to finish it. So for those of you that wanted to hear more, I have the rest of it here. I did not throw out my list. So just in case you missed it last week, the four prosecutors, they had already been rebuked by the department because they were looking for an excessive and unwarranted recommendation. And so here's the story of what happened. They recommended 9 years for lying in an investigation for which there was no crime. This is a process crime. These are the bogus crimes. This is what happened to Scooter Libby. He lied during an investigation, and it turned out that the person he was lying about wasn't even the leaker of, was it Valerie Plame? I think it was so-called exposing her identity when she was working for the CIA. She was not a CIA agent. She was not a spy undercover in enemy territory or anything like that. She worked at the CIA. Either way, Scooter Libby lied about it. He went to jail for this, And it turned out, oh, he wasn't even the one who leaked it in the first place anyway. And they knew that all along. It's so aggravating. So anyway, they wanted 9 years for this process crime. And that's what the Attorney General came in. He said, this is ridiculous. 9 years for this lying is way too much. It was lying and also witness intimidation, because he had said that he was going to kill this witness and their dog or something like that. And this is one of the things here that I didn't get to, is that very witness who was supposedly threatened, he said, we're friends. This is how we talk to each other. This was not witness intimidation. I never felt that my life was in danger, but my dog is still alive. Nothing happened. This is not a real thing. They go after him anyway. And like I mentioned, the four-person of the jury having this extreme anti-Trump sentiment. They're posting on Facebook and everything. On top of that, they found no evidence that Stone or any other Trump associate had direct contact with anyone at WikiLeaks involved in obtaining the Democrat emails. And that was the whole so-called crime to begin with that they were investigating. The prosecutors, that was another issue. The prosecutors before this had already threatened to resign if they didn't get what they wanted for what they were going after to prosecute the individual after. And that's not how justice works. You don't threaten to resign and not do your job if you don't get your way. That's not how our justice system is set up. So the big part of this whole thing that was being accused, that everybody was accusing President Trump of, is that he tweeted something out and then the Justice Department just hopped to and followed what he wanted within hours. Come on, look at this realistic. Does the government do anything within hours? Come on. This was already in the works for quite some time. Days, weeks even. They had been working to do this. Trump tweets out he's in favor of the Justice Department stepping in, and then they go and do what they were already going to do, which is what Attorney General Barr said, that they were already reviewing this extreme sentence recommendation, which was absurd. And so that is the rest of the information that wildly changes some of these headlines. And I read them last week. The lead prosecutor in Roger Stone case resigns after DOJ announces plan to reduce sentence. And the NBC saying Roger Stone prosecutor resigns after DOJ backpedals on sentencing recommendation. All this hugely pejorative stuff trying to make President Trump look like the bad guy in this. Because, of course, it's a news story. If you can't get President Trump to look like the bad guy, there's no use in reporting it. What good can come from that? Make people actually like him? Oh, can't have that. So yeah, that's the recap on that. We've got some more information that we're going to be talking about. Hopefully you'll be able to get to some climate change stuff. And Mayor Bloomberg, oh boy, is he entertaining for entering the race. And the Democrats, they're just salivating at the mouth. I don't know if they hate him more than Trump right now. Now, it's going to change. There's some polling that came out about Wisconsin in particular saying that how Trump is going to beat the pants off of everybody there. And you can't win the presidency without winning Wisconsin. But here's the thing that I want to caution everybody about. And I am very optimistic about the 2020 election. But where are we right now? We're in the middle of the Democrat primary. They hate each other right now. They are totally going to change their tune once they get one person as the representative, and then it becomes that person against Trump. It's going to change a lot, but hopefully not enough for them to actually impact anything. Stay tuned to the Richie Winn Show, The Logical Choice. We're going to talk about more of this when we come back, all about this debate and some very entertaining sound clips. Welcome back to the Richie Winn Show. I'm your host, Richie Winn. If you'd like to call in and be part of the program, our call-in number is 888-923-1380. That's 888-923-1380. We also have our text line set up. If you just want to send a message on over, don't feel like going on the air, that number is 916-234-6263. That's 916-234-6263. And one more thing that so I've had a Twitter account for a while. I try more and more to use it, but either way, it's at Richie Winn, at RichieWinn. Trying to use it more right now. I pretty much just tweet out things that I find entertaining, that I find along the internet. Lots of pictures. For instance, one that is my most recent tweet right now is a picture. It's almost like the outline that you see on a men's room, if that's not too politically incorrect to say men's room anymore. One of them's holding a gun to the other one's head, and it says socialism, ideas so good they have to be mandatory. And that really is just such a great summation of everything that Bernie Sanders especially, but so many of the people that were on that stage last week debating what the Democrat Party should stand for, what they're in favor of. There's so much ridiculousness. In fact, that's a good summation, but Bloomberg himself, he summed it up greatly during the debate. Let's hear some audio from him.
I can't think of a ways that would make it easier for Donald Trump to get reelected than listening to this conversation. It's ridiculous. We're not going to throw out capitalism. We tried that. Other countries tried that. It was called communism, and it just didn't work.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself. I was talking, so just this week, as regular listeners of the show know, I work as a geologist during Monday through Friday. This week I was actually down in Bakersfield for a few days, which was a long drive. Unfortunately, I was actually there when President Trump was down there. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to see him or anything. I was on the clock, had to work the whole time. But either way, I was talking with one of my coworkers, and so we were discussing a lot of different things. We were discussing this podcast that Joe Rogan has. If any of you listen to, I think he's got the #1 or #2 podcast. But he's got a lot of different guests. So he, as far as I can tell, is liberal. He says, I think he's a Bernie Sanders supporter. But he's not the foaming at the mouth, hating capitalism, at least from what I can tell. But he clearly has a left-leaning bend to him. And so we got on the subject of all this. And so my friend, my coworker, he was saying that, he had Bernie Sanders on the show and that the guy sounded reasonable, and I was saying, really, he wants to take away your private health care and do the Medicare for all. And he was saying, well, he's kind of walked away from that, saying he doesn't think that it's viable, that it's going to work. Like, no, that's not walking away from it. Saying this is a pipe dream, I wish we could do this, but we can't, is very different from saying I want to do this, or I wanted to do this, but I decided it's a bad idea. So now I'm stepping away from that and not doing that. The problem is nobody thinks that the healthcare system we have in America is pristine, perfect, nothing needs to be changed, it's all good. Nobody's making that claim. But every time when you have someone on the left saying, it's so horrible, it does not work, we need to throw it out and replace it with universal healthcare. That's effectively what they're saying, or at least saying there's more broken than can be fixed, and it's because of capitalism. How? How on earth can you make that conclusion? There's so many different moving parts, so much waste, so much inefficiency. There was actually Joe Rogan on his show. We were listening to this podcast where he interviews somebody, a professor of robotics. And this wasn't even a political topic that they were discussing, but he made my point for me that was beautiful without knowing it. And this happens so often with so many Democrat policies. So they were talking about cell phones. And they said, your cell phone is amazing. It does everything. But if you wait 5 years and you compare cell phones then to what cell phones are today, you're going to think that today's cell phone is garbage and useless and so outdated and can't do anything anymore because this new one can do so many other new things and has so many features. And he was asking the robotics guy, do you think we're ever going to reach a point with cell phones where companies just go, all right, this is enough. It does everything we need it to do. This is good. No more improvements needed. And they were kind of laughing, saying, well, of course not, that's not how it works. And you know what? That is how it works under socialism. Tell me one government-run institution, other than the military, that has actually improved things. The DMV. Are they anywhere near as efficient as they used to be 10, 20 years ago? Maybe in some ways worse. I guess you can do your registration online. So they've got that. Not like they invented this tool to be able to use it, but at least they have the, oh, yeah. So the DMV is frustrating and awful. I think maybe I'm just thinking this right now because I probably need to go and renew my registration. That's coming up soon. But my producer's laughing at me right now. But either way, DMV's awful. If you want to look at cars, for any of you that are car people out there, you've probably even seen this picture before, where it shows the progression of time of what Soviet cars were under the USSR from the 40s, 50s, 60s up until the late 80s. It was the exact same car made because this is what happens with government-run things. Why improve? There's no competition. You don't have to compete with anybody. You own everything. Why make it better? It's good enough. Why put any effort into it? That's what capitalism has. That's what the healthcare industry has. If you have capitalism there, are there problems with it? Sure, let's fix the problems. But that doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater and install a system that will completely eliminate any motivation to improve. There's no reason to compete. There's no reason to innovate. There's no reason to create new drugs if the government just decides, well, this is good enough. We're just going to leave it here. And this is taking care of people at a rate that is acceptable. So we're done. No more needed. That's what socialism does. Every single time it's tried. And my coworker, unfortunately, he was making the argument that, well, they did it wrong. That, I can't really fault him for this because this gets parroted and repeated all over the place. There's so many people trying to say, well, these other countries just didn't do socialism right. That Russia didn't do it right. That Venezuela did it the wrong way. It's always the wrong way. Nobody goes into it thinking, we want to do it the wrong way. I know there's that right way to do it, but let's do it the wrong way. That'll be much better. And here is a great example. It was from the debate. This is what Bernie Sanders was saying about socialism.
Class of this country to have a little bit of power in Washington rather than your billionaire campaign contributors.
So he mentioned billionaires, but he wasn't talking about Bloomberg. He was actually talking to Buttigieg about his billionaire contributors. And sorry about the sound at the beginning of it cut off, but he was talking about working class, that they need to be the ones in power and control. And this was the point that my friend brought up from listening to the podcast where Bernie Sanders had been a guest on. And he was saying he's very pro-worker. And my response was, well, so was Marx. And he kind of laughed. He said, oh, come on, that's unfair. It's not. That every time they get into it, I don't know of a single example of any of the socialist movements that started off as anything other than being for the working class. That's the entire foundation of it. That's how they sell it. They try to say that we're for them, but then they need to make government bigger and more controlling. And every time they do that, it takes away more and more freedoms that those working class, along with everybody else, has. Because the problem is that they all go into this saying that it's the billionaires that are the problem, or Bernie Sanders has even dropped that because now he's a millionaire. So now it's just billionaires, that they're the problem. And that it's the working class who are being taken advantage of, who are the downtrodden. And so they come in saying, well, we're gonna make these guys pay, but you guys will be fine. And stupidly, people accept that. I mean, I guess I can't say stupidly because, maybe if you are struggling and somebody comes in and says, I can fix it for you, I'm going to blame those guys over there that you already hate, that's probably not a hard thing to buy. It's probably an idea that's pretty easy to get on board with, but it never works. Ever. Yeah. So anyway, this is what Sanders was talking about, and Bloomberg called him on it. It was hilarious. He was talking about Bernie Sanders' level of socialism, and explaining, showing you how ridiculous it is here in America.
When we talk about a corrupt political system bought by billionaires.
Actually, that's the wrong clip. You'll hear that one in a little bit, but here's the one that I meant to play.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What'd I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, house 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, house 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you have your home?
New York City, thank you very much. And I pay all my taxes. And I'm happy to do it because I get something for it.
He actually touched a little bit on what I was talking about last week when I was trying to explain that if Nancy Pelosi really wants to help her party, she's not going to come out and say, oh, all these things that you're doing that are good, President Trump, all of this, minority unemployment that's low and women unemployment that's low and economy that's been booming, all of these numbers that look so good, they're not really happening. That's not actually happening, which is what she's trying to do. And I was saying instead she should come out and say, look, okay, you've got some good numbers, but ours would be better. Your plan, It's got too many flaws with it. It's working some, but it's not working for as many people as it could. If you want everybody to do well, sign on to our plan. And I don't understand why they're not saying that. Bloomberg seems to be at least getting on that a little bit. Everybody thinks that he's buying his way into this election, or at least into this primary election. I don't think that's really all of it. I don't think it's just because he's spending a whole bunch of money. George Soros has, I think, at least as much as Bloomberg. He's got a tremendous amount of money. I don't think he would work him just spending this much money. The problem is that Bloomberg, don't get me wrong, I dislike many of his policies, but some of the things that he's saying, they sound more reasonable than what the socialists are saying. He's saying, let's not abandon capitalism. We want to do it the Democrat way. You like that line that he said at the end. And I'm happy to pay the taxes because I get something in return. It's very, very similar to Obama's "You Didn't Build It" speech, where he was talking about, well, you had a fire department available if your building caught on fire and roads to get there and everything. That's the same logic that he's using, but it resonates with people better. I think, yeah, he is spending a tremendous amount of money on his, and some of it, sure, is because he is a billionaire and can buy this much advertising time. But he's also resonating with them because Bernie Sanders is crazy. I mean, if you watched the debate, some of those exchanges, you can just see his eyes get all big. And he definitely has crazy eyes, just like AOC has, every day of the week. We have even more clips to play and more commentary. It's very entertaining. Stay tuned to the Richie Winn Show, the logical choice. So we had a couple of texts come in that I'd like to get to. One of them was talking about Trump, saying that Trump is the product of construction trades. I had a real adjustment when I left college and went to work in construction because it lacks couth and gentility. You will be insulted and demeaned just for showing up on time, or if you screw up. It is the way the weak and incompetent are separated. No kicked off crews by social rejection. Trump takes working man's method to the elites, and they can't handle the embarrassment. I think that's one of the reasons why, he's a billionaire. But this was during the campaign. I think it was Donald Trump Jr. pointed out that that they are the only children of billionaires that know how to operate a forklift. And he's got a lot of money. And some people say he's earned it. Some people say, well, his father gave him, $240 million loan or something like that. Sure, he definitely had plenty of assistance, but there are lots of people that have lots of assistance that don't turn it into billions of dollars. You don't do that by accident. And a lot of this was not from just savvy investing, but from acting like a working man, talking like a working man, being a working man. This is part of the reason why so many plain-spoken people like him so much, even if they've been lifelong Democrats and union members, because they recognize the type of individual he is. He's not someone who just comes in and, tells everybody what to do. He's done it. He's been part of it. He knows how it works. There was another text about no minority voice at all in the debate, and this was a point that got brought up, I think, by Mayor Pete during the last debate, which had some other entertaining stuff from it about ISIS and how to fight terrorism. They were talking about Soleimani. This is actually a really important point. Let me see if I can find the audio clip from that. The point that he was making was about how terrible it is to go after someone without a plan. And he was, well, let me just play the clip and then I'll comment on it afterward.
And while there's still debate about whether or not there was an imminent threat, there is no debate about whether or not Soleimani was a bad actor who was responsible for the deaths of many Americans. Given what you know about Soleimani, if your national security team came to you with an opportunity to strike, would Soleimani have been dead or would he still be alive under your presidency?
In the situation that we saw with President Trump's decision, there is no evidence that made our country safer. Look, I feel very strongly about the campaign of murder and mayhem that General Soleimani and his units have perpetrated.
Just not that.
It's also the case that if we learned nothing else from the war in Iraq, it's that taking out a bad guy is not a good idea if you do not know what you were doing.
So let me get this straight. They ask you if you would have taken the guy out, and you say no, and then you follow it up by saying taking out a bad guy is not a good idea if you don't have a plan. So you don't have a plan? What other conclusion is there to draw from that? That's how the logic works. He set up an if then, and then he gave us the if. So we can only conclude then that he doesn't have a plan. I'm sorry, that's how it works. These are your own words. Maybe he wants to claim he misspoke from that, but he clearly doesn't have a plan. And I agree with him. It is a bad idea to do something like that if you don't have a plan. That's how ISIS was made. It was because Obama, for political reasons and against the advice of everybody in the DOD, everybody in the Pentagon, all of his generals saying, no, this is a bad idea. Don't pull out. We need people there. He says, yeah, but an election's coming up. I got to do this. I said I was going to do it. Yeah, but it's a terrible idea. Do not pull out of there. Okay, I think I'm gonna. And he pulls out. And what happens? That JV team of ISIS see a power vacuum, and they go in and they take control, and then they become this horrific force that luckily has been, we've done so much progress under President Trump to combat and contain it. They now have no more territory. We did get another another text message to the show saying, funny how the party of inclusiveness and diversity have only white people, mostly rich, who are in contention. You can't make this up. It's true. It's very entertaining. And the thing is, they're so quick to point out racism. This was I was having a conversation with another coworker of mine. He might even be listening today because I just told him about my show. But he was a wonderful breath of fresh air for conservative thought. And we were talking about all of the snowflake individuals and how not that long ago, even 20 years ago, it's certainly 30, 40, longer than that, it was, if you went around telling people all of the things that get under your skin, that made you look like an idiot. It made you look like an overly sensitive, like, what? How do you go outside? Go away, come back when you've grown up a little bit, when you've toughened up a little bit, and you don't need to go around getting offended at everything you see. Why on earth would you want to give everyone the ability to get under your skin? How does that, forget everybody else, how does that make you happy? How can you find any sort of happiness if everyone has the power to upset and offend you? It's just a bad strategy for life. And now, somehow, the really it's the leftists. I think there's a decent amount of liberals that may not agree with this, but certainly the leftists, they think that this is somehow noble. The more things you can get offended by, the better. It makes you more woke. And especially if you fit into those categories, this is how the whole intersectional nonsense works. Oh, you're just a white man getting offended at these other things? Well, that's just terrible. Oh, you are a Native American mixed with black and, I don't know, maybe Australian or Aborigine, and you're a lesbian and a male to female to back to male and then back to female again person, and you've been abused and you were colonized and who knows what. Oh, this is going to be the voice of reason, the ultimate moral champion that will tell us all of the offensive things that are being done and how we need to raise taxes on the Republicans to stop this. Because it's never legitimate. They never tell us actual real things to do to combat racism. Just this week, I'm assuming most of you listen to 1380 during the other days of the week, not just for my show. Although, if it is just for my show, that's a very big compliment. Thank you. But I was listening to Larry Elder earlier this week, and he was talking about this story when he was at an airport, and there was a woman who was on her phone playing this game that was loud. It was annoying everybody. But she happened to be black. As you know, he is black, but everybody else that was listening was white, and they were very conspicuously not making eye contact with this person, let alone actually telling her, hey, would you mind turning this down? Everybody can hear this. So he speaks up and he says it politely. And she's, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, no problem. And so she turns it down. And he talks to some of them later after she leaves and saying that and he said it in kind of a, jovial way so that it's not like he was being offended or anything, but he asked them, did you just not say anything because she was black? And they were saying, well, yeah, kind of. And so this whole wokeness thing that you have to walk on eggshells around everybody and never do anything offensive, it makes people afraid to do things that are legitimately not offensive. Like asking someone to turn down their game or phone or whatever when they're in a public place and it's annoying everybody. That's not an offensive thing to do. But it makes people afraid to do this. This is the Ferguson effect. It happens with police officers who are afraid to afraid to confront potentially dangerous individuals because they're worried about the political or racial fallout. And this is a trackable thing that has been going on. Either way, without getting too far off topic with that, the debate that happened this last week had so much hilarity in it. There was one part where Sanders was talking. Actually, before I get to that, so I just played a bit before about Bloomberg commenting that Bernie Sanders is the best-known socialist and he's a millionaire with 3 houses. And it strikes me that there's this wonderful quote. I found the audio for it. It's from the philosopher Carlin about judging other people.
Have you ever noticed when you're driving that anyone who's driving slower than you is an idiot, and anyone driving faster than you is a maniac?
No, I love that clip. And obviously, this is George Carlin, if any of you didn't recognize his voice, the comedian, not exactly a philosopher, but in some ways, very definitely a philosopher. But I love this mentality. There's so many times, and we can all, at least I can identify with that, even just on the way here. There were many people who were going, they were going very slow in lanes they should not be going slow in. And of course, it's annoying and irritating, but even aside from driving, there's such an important point of when we have a certain opinion about something, and anybody who departs from us on either side, you look at them as just wildly ridiculous or these fringe opinions. And this is the big problem with it. There's people like Elizabeth Warren that want to crack down on speech that is quote-unquote lying or that they disagree with. Who gets to be the judge of what is lying, what is wrong? I think we have time for it. There's a clip that she said during this that doesn't even sound related, but I'm going to tell you exactly how it is and how this corrupts science that I care very deeply about.
We are going to increase by tenfold our investment in science. There's an upcoming $27 trillion market worldwide for green.
That's a really important thing that she said there at the end. Now, this sounds good. It's like, okay, well, maybe I don't like your policies, but increasing spending on science tenfold, that sounds almost reasonable, doesn't it? The last word she put in there, $27 trillion in spending for green. What happens when you say we're going to have all this money available, but only for projects that are about global warming? What kind of studies do you think you're going to get? Maybe, just maybe, studies that show climate change, that global warming is caused by humans, is going to kill the planet, and everybody's trying to outdo the other one to make it more severe, more of a catastrophe, because that means more funding. They're paying for their own propaganda. I bet most of them don't even know it. We're going to expose that and some more when we get back. Stay tuned to the Richie Winn Show, the logical choice. We do have a caller right now from El Dorado Hills. We have Patrick, I believe.
Yes. Hey,
go ahead.
Richie.
You're on the air.
No, actually, I'm in I'm El Dorado County. Actually,
county. Sorry about that.
The whole county, no problem. El Dorado Hills is obviously the big area with a lot of wealth. I'm a
lots of
retired
asbestos.
military officer, and I'm retired, and that means the Hatch Act doesn't apply to me anymore. But here's the thing: you cannot trust the Democrats with foreign policy. And that's all the way across the board. And I do want to talk about what I consider the worst president in my lifetime, and that's Barack Obama. And I'll give you reasons why.
Sure. I mean, we've only got 10 minutes left in the show. There's a lot of reasons to dislike him.
Here it is. It's basically, let's start. He helps our enemies. And he helps, he basically gave back the whole high command of the Taliban for a deserter. And
I have so much animosity for Bo Bergdahl.
Right. Well, here's the other thing. He didn't listen to anybody, and he thought he was so smart that he decided to start pulling out of Iraq, and that let ISIS kill 500,000 people. It wasn't just the Yazidis, it was Iraqis, it was Syrians. It was just horrific.
Oh, yeah, they became by far and away the number one terrorist force in the world.
Exactly. And then you could give that right to Obama and his mismanagement. I would have brought in B-52s and taken them all out when they hit the Syrian border. And the thing is, there was a lack of knowing what to do, and he did exactly the wrong thing. And then the last math exhibit, which I think is another thing that shows he helps our enemies. And that was when he.
Hang on, we're getting a little bit of feedback from you. Are you in an area where it's real echoey or something?
No, it's basically I'm outside. Here, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes, up here in the hills, we don't have the greatest cell phone.
Gotcha.
But basically, he gave back all the money from 1979, and Iran did not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was billions of dollars. Yeah, thank you very much for the call. We're gonna have to let you go especially to get to the other topics before the end of the show. But that's such an excellent point. He did so much. I mean, there were so many people who were saying this while he was president, that our friends no longer trust us and our enemies no longer fear us. People are talking right now about complaining. People on the left are complaining about President Trump, saying that he's upsetting everybody, that there's so many of our friends who don't like us as much. Well, yeah, because we were taken advantage of with just about every trade policy that we had. It was ridiculous. So yeah, he's been tougher on them, but he's also been a whole lot tougher on our enemies. One of the things that used to bug me so much was how President Obama used to refer to them as ISIL instead of ISIS. It stands for the Islamic State in Syria, if it's ISIS, or in the Levant. If when he would talk about it as ISIL, he was saying, well, the Levant is really what they're trying to control and what they have. Really? You're going to just give them that territory? I mean, it's a subtle thing, but it really makes a difference. It's this mindset of, well, they're a force to be reckoned with. It may be better to just give them a seat at the UN. It's that same line of thinking, and it's just so irritating. It's like, no, you guys are little upstarts, you're terrorists, and we're going to take you out. And that's what President Trump does. If you don't like his tweets about it, if you don't like his attitude about it, if you don't like the language he uses, fine, those are legitimate complaints, but don't stop him from doing that. That's so much of the takeaway. And I think that's exactly why he's going to win in 2020. That and things like what's going on with this debate. There's another clip that I have where Sanders just does not get it. There's an exchange between him and Bloomberg where Sanders is trying to blame things on people when it's his fault.
When we talk about a corrupt political system bought by billionaires like Mr. Bloomberg, it manifests itself in a tax code in which not only is Amazon and many other major corporations, some owned by the wealthiest people in this country, not paying a nickel in taxes, we have the insane situation that billionaires today, if you can believe it, have an effective tax rate lower than the middle class.
Senator, so maybe just the tax code. Why are you complaining? What? You wrote the code.
You did. You and your campaign. Not me. You and your campaign contributions electing people who represent the wealthy and the powerful.
Yes,
those are the folks.
Democrats. Thank you.
Well, and Republicans too.
Okay.
And George W. Bush as well.
Wonderful.
Of course, he had to throw that in there at the end. Oh, and by the way, I hate this person too. I mean, it's almost like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Team America. It's with puppets. It's made by the people of South Park. But there's this one part where I think it's their Alec Baldwin impersonation. He's just scrambling and trying to get people on board with him. He's saying, and the corporations are all corporation-y and they're corrupt. It's just exactly what Bernie Sanders is doing. He's just scrambling and just, oh crap, I've been called out. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Can you really blame the people who are giving the bribes versus the people who are taking the bribes? Which is essentially what he's doing. I'm not saying it is bribery, but he's talking about lobbying. Sure, we all wish that there was less lobbying in politics. Really what we wish for is, it's kind of like that driving thing again. We all wish there was less money in politics that we disagree with. And unfortunately, there's no way to eliminate it altogether. This is the entire point with this wealth tax. That's such a stupid idea that you cannot tax wealth. You can't do it philosophically with the American ideals that we have, and practically, in a practical sense, you can't do it. It won't work. It's like, how much wealth do you think they're going to have when you implement this wealth thing? Especially because it's not going to be we announce it today and it goes into effect tomorrow. This is going to take time. There's going to be plenty of notice. It's going to be like turning the lights on when the roaches are in the room. They scatter. Oh, you have $1 billion sitting in an account? By the way, we're going to tax it next year. Next year comes around. Hey, what happened to that $1 billion? Oh, well, now it's tied up. Now I have all of these properties all over the place, which I don't know if they've appreciated. Maybe they've not appreciated. I'm using them for business. These are just other, they're not, it's not wealth that I have anymore. These are investments. These are part of a company. There's so many different ways to move wealth around, to change it from just sitting in an account, which most of it doesn't anyway, to, oh, well, now it's stock. Now this is my company using it. Sure, if I cashed it out, it'd be worth this much, but I haven't done that yet. It doesn't count as wealth for me right now. It's still growing. Could go down. Could disappear. The wealth will not be there if you threaten to tax it. And right now, it's useful to have it there because it can be used to grow businesses. It can be used to, even if they spend money, even if you have the selfish billionaire, all he wants to do is be on yachts and drive fast cars. Can't say that is an unappealing lifestyle. That sounds like a lot of fun. Even if they do that, they're paying all these people to staff their boats. They're giving money to companies. They're giving money to dealerships. They have to pay their employees. This is literally it was accused of being trickle-down economics, but this is literally how economics works. You get more money into the system, and that's how economies grow. You don't take it from people, put it into the government, and then you have to pay people to do that, so it's further getting waste, and then it finally goes to whatever it is you wanted it to go for. If it was putting roofs on schools, which they'll probably they try and sell a bond for, and then it's like, oh, well, it's not actually going to go toward roofs, we're going to spend it on all of these other things. This is how economics works. You let the people who are good at increasing wealth do that for all the people around them. You don't take that from the people who are increasing wealth, disincentivizing them to create any, and give it to the people who all they can do is decrease wealth. And that's all socialism can do. And that's exactly what Bernie Sanders is trying to do. He was proposing this wealth tax, which is...
He's honest about the fact that taxes will go up on anybody making more than $29,000 to fund his health care plan. Although, again, a little bit vague about how the rest of that...
You're not being honest. Premiums would be eliminated.
But you're still raising those taxes, and
but
when
we're saving people money because they don't pay any premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, co-payments, or deductibles. They're going to be much better off.
But where's the other $25 trillion supposed to come from? At a certain point, you got to do the math.
Well, we got it all up there on the internet. It's a payroll tax. A payroll tax.
No, but even after the payroll tax, you still have a...
Because we have a wealth tax. Elizabeth has a good one. Ours is a little bit tougher on Mr. Bloomberg than hers. We're going to raise it in a progressive way, which deals with income and wealth inequality, and make certain, finally, that health care in this country is a human right, not a privilege.
So much stupidity in that. Why doesn't he just be honest? It's just, what he's complaining about when he said that you're not being honest is because Buttigieg was saying correctly, your plan will raise taxes on people more money than they're going to save. And he's saying, well, you didn't talk about the premiums that they're going to save. Well, yeah, because essentially, why don't you just come out and be honest and say, we're going to save you hundreds of dollars, and we'll do it by charging you thousands of dollars. That's what he's talking about. That's what it should be.